Hello and welcome to Torpid Casts. Today we are going to be witnessing Persistence, playing as the Commander Knob here, who have been quite persistent actually in resisting the efforts of the Tyranids on Calderis Desert. These Tyranids are going to be led by a Lictor Alpha, played by RoboCarp. I always find it fitting that RoboCarp is a carp and he plays the Tyranids. Both very numerous species in their respective worlds and galaxies. It's a good job carps don't reproduce like Tyranids. Could you imagine? They'd take over everything. They'd be unstoppable. Now it would be a lovely engagement for the Commander Knob, were it not for the presence of that Lictor Alpha. What a pain in the arse. Flips him over, turn him against little flesh borers, pew-pewing in. Oh, point blank stun there. Well, that's actually quite good because it's two shooters to focus the Lictor, only one ranged unit to focus the Commando Knob. So that worked out alright, but this is a bit dubious. If the Sluggers can get some specials here, they'll do well, yeah. They stopped capping soon enough. I think the cover was helping them a bit, not all the Homers getting into melee. Really, the Homers should have tag teamed these boys here. Yeah, the Homers are scared. Oh, that's really bad. Shouldn't have done that. Terma's rotating over. You can see the speed difference here between the Orc boys and the Termas. Look how speed they are, the little shits. Speed 6 versus the 5 speed for pretty much all Orc units, to be honest. Though they do get that speed buff. Well, they're getting a speed buff right now because they got their melee charge. But in general, they get speed buff when they war. But this is a bad fight for the Sluggers. They do not want this. No, 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 no. They are getting shredded by those Homers. Homers, very good DPS, not very good health. But good DPS and speed. And there's another Homer in retreat. This could be the end of the Sluggers. Nope, they're leaping to combat. Screws them. Shouldn't have right-clicked when he did. He should have waited till he was within range and then attacked the Sluggers so that they didn't do their leap, and that would have been a wipe. And that would have been quite a nice little grab, to be honest, because Sluggers scale amazingly into tier 2 against the Tyranids. They're a bit questionable in tier 1. Like, default Sluggers will beat default Homers 1v1. Certainly if they use WAR, but they will in general. However, they bleed quite a lot, they're very fragile, and because you're slower than the Homers are 6.5 versus your 5, if you have to retreat out of a melee fight, it's going to go quite badly for you and you risk getting wiped, whereas the Homers retreating out will never get wiped by Sluggers, because the Sluggers aren't fast enough to keep up. And now we've got Raveners, hybrid jump units, as it says down here. Short range on their ranged weapons, but very powerful burst damage. They are themselves speed 6, I believe, or 6.5, I can't remember, one or the other. They're faster than average, again. And so it means they can kite quite effectively melee units. When they burrow in, they will also do disruption, knocking things flying, which is really good, because it only affects enemy units, not allied units. So if your Homers are in a big melee brawl, you can burrow in with your Raveners, knock over the enemies, and then go into melee with those enemies whilst they're on the floor with your Homers and your Raveners, and it'll be a lot of damage. And this is probably what you should do here. I should probably have took that fight. It should be easy with your 4 gaunts there. Both the Homers get on one of the shooters, and as soon as the Storm Boys engage, you focus fire the Storm Boys with the Termas, and then you burrow the Raveners on top of the Storm Boys, and then the Raveners and both Homer gaunts gobble up the Storm Boys quite easily, because they're isolated, only being one lone melee squad. Now he's going to take the fight. He's got the Lictor around, but there's also a Commando Knob leading with a pretty good stun bomb there. Going to stun all the Raveners, that's quite valuable. Stormboys really shouldn't be going in right now though. They've got 16 Homer gaunts charging in, and a Lictor upgraded with the Toxin something or other. No, not Toxic Miasma, that's the armor. What the hell's that weapon called? Oh, I forgot the name of the weapon. It's not a Crippling Talon. That's a Ravener Alpha. Is it a Toxin Miasma? It might be the Toxic Miasma. And then he has Toxic Cysts as an ability from his armor. honestly, forever, I've always found it a problem to remember the Tyranid wargear names. They all just sound so similar. And a lot of them are very rare. I feel like it is a toxin miasma. Anyway. No need to retreat there. Oh, well, let me check their energy. Yeah, they had plenty of energy. They could have just burrowed over here and disengaged, and then they would have kept their field presence, which would have been quite valuable. But anyway. They retreat. It is the toxin miasma. It kind of sounds weird, doesn't it? Toxin miasma is a weapon. It sounds like an effect or an ability, not a weapon. You think it was toxic miasma? I don't know, whatever. It's a weapon wargear for the Lictor, and it's very strong, very high basic melee damage to a single target and additional damage over time. I think it also reduces the damage of the model affected. Does it lower their speed too? Yeah, reduces their speed and damage by 25% for 5 seconds and deals 4.5 piercing damage every second for 3 seconds. So the debuff is actually longer than the damage, which I didn't realise. It's a debuff of 5 seconds and a damage over time of 3 seconds. The damage over time is only piercing, but when orcs are all light infantry, piercing's basically full damage to them. So yeah, it's a lot. 65 melee DPS. That makes it on par with most power melee weapons, which do 50 DPS plus 30%, which ends up being, you know, similar to 65. But then of course it's got the damage over time, so it's actually way more deadly against infantry than basically any of those 50 DPS power melee weapons are, even against heavy infantry. Pretty scary stuff, but the Lictor's a squishy boy. And the blob of orcs here really just scares RoboCarp off. He doesn't want it. He's running around the map trying his best to cap. Certainly did need to retreat those homers instantly, and he did. He'll lose maybe a couple of models, but not too big of a deal, really. Yeah, he's alright. He's alright. He'll lose his one. An attempt to disengage here, but it's not going to work. We do have a shooter now who can detect the Lictor. So the Lictor needs to retreat. RoboCarp is tier 2. Persistence is going tier 2. But generally you'd say that that has to favour the Tyranids, because has to favour the Orcs. I'm thinking too fast here. Has to favour the Orcs over the Tyranids, because Tyranids don't really get anything from their tier 2, whereas the Orcs do. You know, at least in terms of vehicle armour. What's the biggest threat right now the Tyranids can get out? A Tyrant Guard. Yes, the shooters, which have had a lot of investment, to be fair. Free wargears purchased on these guys. They won't do anything to a Tyrant Guard, but ultimately the Tyrant Guard should be quite slow, especially because RoboCarp is playing the Lictor Alpha, aka a non-Synapse leader. He's not a Hive Tyrant, and he has no warriors. So he's got no Synapse units, and that means you will have no boosted speed for your Tyrant Guard. Bit of a questionable capillary tower. I hope it's going to call in some rippers, because these shooters have had a lot of investment and you could deal with them quite easily using some rippers, and they probably should. But it's questionable because he didn't have any support around here. The shooters, had they just turned around, would just shoot this thing down and destroy it, and they might very well do it from this side now. Then you've just given XP and red to your opponent and lost red yourself. And let's face it, orcs have a lot more use for red than the Tyranids, so strange. It is going to be a Death Dread coming out first for RoboCarp, and the Venom Brood over here have just been purchased and got their ranged Synapse. So they're buffing the damage of the Termagants and the Raveners, who are still in their default hybrid form. But all the Death Dread has to do is go into melee with the Venom Brood, and of course you've got Storm Boys around to jump on top of the Venom Brood as well. And then it will shut down the ranged AV, and your Death Dread should be chilling. You can see that's why the Tyranids there all just retreat out. Now you could very much dissuade the Death Dread from going into melee like that if you had some heavy melee around, if you had some Adrenal Gland Warrior Brood, if you had a Tyrant Guard. Either of those would be good options. You do have an option in the... I forgot the name of the wargear as well, but the red Lictor Alpha one, Corrosive something. The tier 2 Lictor Alpha one that gives him the ability to poison targets that he hits. Similar to this, but it will actually make them take more damage this time. It will reduce their damage resistance, and that will actually apply to vehicles. Make them take more damage. Then you can chop it up with things like the Stormboy Knob, who does heavy melee, hence the hammer indicator on top. And it looks like right there, Lictor Alpha committing a little bit too hard, getting taken out by all the Orc melee. Death Dread no slouch in melee. Certainly if he can proc a few specials, he'll really hurt. But RoboCarp's kind of just stalling and delaying. I mean, he is losing gens, but he did push the Death Dread off, right, without losing his full farm. And he's going to immediately replace them, because he's going tier 3, and he knows that if he gets into tier 3, he can spam a few Carnifex, but he's going to need the power to do so. Stick bombs tossed out in retreat. Good stick bombs there from Persistence, actually. Called in a Commando Stab'em squad. So these are unique to the Commando Knob to get in tier 2. Any of the Orc heroes can get them in tier 3 if they upgrade an ordinary Commando squad. But yeah, they've got stabby choppers to slice and dice the enemy with. So a lot of melee pressure right now. You've got the Slugger Boys, you've got Stab'ems, and you've got Storm Boys. I believe Stab'ems are only normal melee damage. I don't think they're power melee like the Storm Boy choppers. But still, it's a lot of damage. A lot of melee potential here. When they get tier 3, they'll be able to get their Commando Knob leader, who is similar to the Storm Boy Knob in that he does heavy melee. Hide the Boys used as well by Persistence here on the Storm Boys. He's trying to get in tight to something. I'm not sure what really, because the Raveners will always be near the Venom Brood anyway, thanks to the ranged Synapse buffing them. But of course then the Venom Brood will just detect the Infiltrators, so it's a bit dubious. Yeah. The more obvious assault of just jumping on them with your Storm Boys makes a lot of sense in this instance. But RoboCarp is delaying. Look at this. I mean, he's taking the natural VP here with Termagants. He's got Hormagaunts running down the sidelines. It is all just a stalling effort. Now, let's check how much power he's got. Yeah, he's only got 137. So it is important that he still defends his power farm, because, yes, he might soon have the resources to get a Carnifex, but really he wants to have a nice backup and continuous stream of income so that he could get potentially multiple Carnifex. Generally, you always want 2. As soon as possible. If you can go for the Venom Cannon to counter any enemy tanks, then you can go for the Formback as well, and that combination is really strong, because the Formback dominates everyone in melee, but is really vulnerable to tanks due to it being slower than a tank. But then you get the Venom Cannon, and that can protect your Formback from enemy tanks. Of course, RoboCarp might just be saving up for a Swarm Lord. If we look at the VPs on the top here, there's a lot of gameplay time for both players. And I've got the hiccups now. Nope. He's just going to go for the Carnifex. I mean, I guess he's feeling a little bit pressured right now. He has lost his gen farm once again. Death Dread is still on the field, rampaging about. And the VPs are ticking down quite quick for RoboCarp. So yeah, 150 power investment into that Carnifex, and this is part of the problem. Now he's only down to 30 in the stockpile behind, and he's lost his gens, so probably should replace one of those gens ASAP. That said, he's going to need a fair bit of requisition as well just to upgrade his Carnifex. If it's your first Carnifex, I'd say 80% of the time, no, maybe 70% of the time you want to go Formback. Now, if you're ahead in tech, then I'd increase that to 90%. And he's marginally ahead in tech. I mean, I don't think Persistence is going to have another unit queued up behind this, but let's have a look. No. Okay, so that's good for RoboCarp. He is definitely ahead. It's going to be a while till a tank can come out. Tank would be an amazing counter to any melee Carnifex, like the default one or the Formback one. But then a Knob Squad would be a good counter to any ranged Carnifex, and actually would do quite well in a 1v1, certainly against the default Carnifex. Against the Formback it'd be a bit tricky. I think the Knobs would win in a straight up fight if it had to be a fight to the death, but the problem is The Carnifex just turns around and charges away, and then it bleeds a couple of your knobs, and it does a lot of damage, and then it charges away. And that's why you've got to have the looted tank to pursue it when it does that, generally. But he is tier 3 with a commando knob, so he could actually just get a rocket launcher on the commando knob, and that would be a huge threat to the Carnifex instead, so you don't need a looted tank. And there they've got their commando knob now with his big hammer. His boink hammer. So it's another heavy melee option there. So you've got a couple now for the orcs. Well, actually you've got 3 if you include the Death Dread. But here comes the fight. Formback Carnifex has been purchased as expected, and it's a good choice. No further upgrades for the Lictor. If we do see knobs coming out. So what we could see now is we could see a looted tank to counter the Carnifex. And then RoboCarp gets another Carnifex, this time with a Venom Cannon. And that will deter the looted tank. But then there could be a Knob Squad from Persistence. The Knob Squad counters the Venom Cannon Carnifex, and then the tank of Persistence can counter the Formback Carnifex on RoboCarp. RoboCarp could counterplay this by picking up the Menacing Visage tier 3 accessory wargear, which on a quite a large cooldown allows the Lictor to walk up point blank to someone and force them into a retreat. Is this going to be the death of the sluggers? Coming very close right now. Oh, beautiful flesh up to secure the kill. There you go. Grabbed him. But yeah, Menacing Visage, absolutely amazing counter to something like a Knob Squad. Why is he not capping the point here, RoboCarp? Wow, he's got loads of units, and he's got his Lictor hanging around. He's got his full health Carnifex. He really should be on the point right now. Just put a Termagant on it or something. And just overwhelm these dudes in melee. It should be pretty easy for you with a Carnifex. Carnifex right now messing around. Not actually in combat. Took it ages to get involved in the combat, but going straight after the Nobber here for the Commandos. We do see that rocket launcher on the Commando knob, and that is why the Lictor Alpha's leapt into combat and is focusing down that Commando knob. Looking like a pretty bad situation for the Orcs right now. Bleeding quite a bit. Well, Commandos, did they get a backlash? No, they didn't. This is going badly. Raveners do just manage to burrow out, do they? Oh, they're not being microed, okay. Can he get the kill on the Raveners? Stagger Jump's gonna say no. Nah. The pistols on the Orcs are really quite dreadful. Not a good fight. And probably doesn't want to take this fight. Could probably beat the Lictor one-on-one. Oh, this is bad. The Carnifex, I was gonna say, might just grab that Stormboy knob. But they do manage to jump away. Good play there from Persistence. But he's lost some units in that one. I'm not sure when he lost both the shooters. I feel like he'd already been down one, but I'm not sure. Chop, 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 chop. Nearly kills the Homers, wow. Yeah, you can't underestimate the damage of the Stormboys, but they need to turn around. Again, unfortunately, Slugger's not really doing anything there. Sluggers being the pistols on the Orcs. They call them Sluggers. Still, it's going to be expensive for RoboCarp to reinforce that. Probably doesn't need to reinforce them fully, and he really probably shouldn't. He should just use them capping with maybe 4 models at most. 3 or 4 models will be sufficient so they don't die instantly if they're stared at by, I don't know. Well, actually, there's no range DPS now that I look at the roster. You've got Stabums, Death Dread, Stormboy, Sluggers, and then a Rocket Launcher Commando. So, yeah, fuck it, run these guys at 3 models, you'll be fine. Probably. So he got a rocket shot off there on the Carnifex. I was just about to say, but this would be brutal if he gets hooked in right now, and the Carnifex and the Lictor both contribute. Wow, look at the damage. Holy shit, if there was a Stalk used there by the Lictor, that would probably be a dead Commando knob. I think Persistence needs to sort of regroup and come back at this. It's going to go for a Knob Squad, but man, this is so easily countered by Menacing Visage, and RoboCarp already has it. Wow. So all RoboCarp needs to do right now is hug his Carnifex with the Lictor. And if he does that, anytime the Knob Squad come in and try and smash the Carnifex one-on-one, which they will do, although it'll take a long time, Carnifex can safely disengage by saving his charge and charging away, which will knock all the knobs over. But anytime the knobs go to bang, he can just make them retreat with Menacing Visage. Yeah, and Persistence actually going for a looted tank here, which honestly is probably a better first choice. I would be getting the Knob Squad to counter a Barb Strangler Carnifex, what they called a Stranglethorn Cannon, an Uber Barb Strangler, or a Venom Cannon. And that is likely what will happen. He'll see the looted tank with RoboCarp and he'll realise he needs a Venom Cannon Carnifex. But the Venom Cannon could be maybe tied up by the Death Dread. And then you can advance the looted tank and the Rocket Knob, and you could focus down the Venom Cannon. At least when the Venom Cannon Carnifex is dead, there isn't really a good counter to the looted tank, and that can then deal with the Carnifex. It'll take a long time for a looted tank to take down a Carnifex. Looted tank more of an anti-infantry kind of tank, but it's still a tank, it's still faster than the Carnifex. Still does anti-all damage, so it will eventually kill it. But here comes the second Carnifex. I think RoboCarp's kind of chilling, playing it really safe here. He knows he's massively ahead in VPs at this point. And really it is up to Persistence to get on these VPs. A little bit strange that RoboCarp has nothing defending this point. Has he literally just been capping with a one model Hormigaunt squad? Wow, that's honestly impressive. You know, there's a fine line between bravery and stupidity, and I don't always know where it gets crossed. Oh, I forgot there's a Venom Brood in here as well, so they can zone the tank, even if the Venom Cannon Carnifex, that I'm assuming is coming out, gets tied up by something like a Death Dread. The Venom Brood can still be hanging around and can actually probably shoot down the Death Dread. The Elixir gets caught out there. Caught out by the Stormboy stunning it, and then the Death Dread getting involved. Oh, big special attack there from the Death Dread. Very nice. Probably wants to focus on the Venom Brood. Wow, Venom Brood nearly killing the looted tank. Looted tank micro being messed up a little bit there. Venom Brood are going to pursue, but seems to be a recovery there from Persistence. Just managed to get out of there. Oh, what's he doing? He walked the Venom Cannon Carnifex right past it. Oh my god, it could have easily shot that looted tank to death. But Persistence has forgot about the looted tank. I don't know if they can see one another. They have to be able to see one another. Stop moving the Carnifex. It can't fire on the move, but it's got really long range. He needs to stop moving it. Just stand still, my dude, and shoot. Thank you, finally. Oh my god, he's shooting. He shot the Death Dread. Just shoot the tank. Bro, what is he doing? He's shooting commandos right now. My guy, please. Kill the tank. What are you doing? Just stop chasing. Shoot. He's leaving it too long. Oh my god. He's trying to flank with a Carnifex. Just shoot. Thank you, finally. Good god. Look at the range. He could have killed that thing so long ago. That was actually a brutal fight for Persistence. Lost quite a lot in the middle there. Lost his Commando Knob. All the way down at the bottom here. Going for another looted tank. If the VPs were inverted, I'd say Persistence has a chance with his commandos and stuff, capping it faster and all that. He's got the mobility of Stormboys, but there's a lot of VPs here for RoboCarp to survive off of, and honestly, I think he's going to do it since he's got the double Carnifex players. Just going to send them both back to base and heal. I think he's forgot about his homers. They need to go out and start capping, but they can't really fight anything right now. Not sure what the Rippers are doing here. Menacing Visage? He has Menacing Visage, but I think he's not retreating, is he? What's he doing? Wow. Finally uses it, jeez. That was really late. I'm guessing he was hoping he wouldn't have to, but you do. We could have done that a long time ago, though. Guess just forgetting that he has it. Not a lot of games go to tier 3, to be honest, so players often are very unfamiliar with tier 3 war gear and compositions and all that. Just because naturally you spend the least amount of playtime playing in tier 3, because games don't go to tier 3 that often. God, what percentage of playtime in Dawn of War 2 have I spent in tier 3? Probably less than 10%, honestly. Has to be less than 10%. Splash damage power of the looted tank shown off quite well there against those Termers. They did not enjoy that. Really good splash damage on looted tank. RoboCarp blobbing like crazy right now. I feel like he should probably be splitting up his units a bit more. They're looking so vulnerable to a rocks right now. And persistence is very close to the amount of red he needs for that. He repurchases the commando, which is a really good choice because he does have that rocket. Just has to be careful about flesh hooks. But if he uses his infiltration, he should be able to avoid flesh hooks, you know, fairly easily. Another Venom Brood, because RoboCarp lost his prior one at some point. Probing shots here from the Commando Knob. Probably wants to focus down the Venom Cannon Carnifex. It's squishier. Doesn't have the same HP regen nor max HP of the Formback, but that was a fuck up from Persistence. Forgot about his bloody Commando and he literally walked right next to the Carnifex and got detected. And now his tank is getting chopped up by the Carnifex in melee and he needs to keep microing it. Oh wow, he just let it get caught by the Formback. That's not very good play. And he's very low on VPs. Yeah, he's lost all of his main assets. He can't deal with these double Carnifex. Ah, he had the tools for it. He could have chipped away, I think maybe with a beamy looter as well, to do some good DPS to the Formback as it comes into melee. And obviously he needed to not mess up his macro there and his looted tank. Losing a looted tank to a melee Carnifex is quite inexcusable, really. That has to be your priority, even if you're not very good at reversing vehicles. You should still have ample time to get away from a melee Carnifex, for God's sake. But there you go, dual Carnifex, win the day. Classic combo. This is kind of the NID 1-2. You know, I go on about 1-2s a lot with each of the factions, where you get one vehicle and one infantry unit in tier 3, and it's really hard for your opponent to counter if they don't have their own 1-2. Well, for Tyranids, you don't have that tier 3 infantry squad. You just get more Carnifex, but different forms. So there you go, pretty good game I think for a sloppy Saturdays there, some nice back and forth, and I liked the preemptive menacing visage that would have hard countered any knobs, which themselves would have hard countered the Venom Cannon. So it's a nice little tech that the Lictor Alpha gets in the late game that kind of makes his Carnifex 1-2 even stronger than the others. Well, I guess it depends on who you're fighting, but yeah, knobs being off the table for the Orcs is very, very powerful. So good stuff, thanks for tuning in folks, that's going to be all from your boy Torpid this time. I am signing out.